So, my name is Amanda Erin Kelly, and I am a multidimensional field worker. I channel activations. I'm an author of Let There Be Light, Liberating the Heart of Humanity to Create Heaven on Earth. I host the podcast Heart of Truth, which is how we connected, and I created a Lumina Wisdom School. So essentially, we all are very multidimensional in nature, and I'm very much embodying that, but I am a spiritual mentor, I suppose is the easiest, simplest way to describe what I do. It started with a cancer diagnosis and getting into the nitty-gritty of healing. And I spiraled deeper and deeper, and now here I am, connecting with all the layers of myself and integrating. That's really what I have found the key is integrating all the different aspects of self and becoming more embodied and more empowered and more me.
There must have been in your life this one moment where you like connected more deeply with what they say is spirituality.
Well, yes, and it's been many moments. It was a journey that really unfolded over time for me, and my cancer diagnosis was a huge one because I really started getting these messages, and probably a simple term to put on this is soul remembrance. I started to remember, to kind of start to put the pieces of myself back together as I went on this journey, but I was diagnosed. Whoa, I just saw a huge bird fly by my window, and it really is very much about getting our wings back. It's like allowing our hearts to blossom and to open and to literally get our wings back. And that to me is what the open heart chakra is. It's a journey out of the head into the heart, but that's so hard for us humans. We operate so mentally, intellectually, logically, linearly. And to get back into the body, to get back into the heart, that takes a lot of deep trauma work. To put simple terms on it, like to really heal the emotional wounds, to heal the trauma. And so my cancer diagnosis was definitely, I think, probably one of the more prominent ones, because I started receiving messages that it wasn't my time to die. It was my job to heal the family pattern of dying from cancer, because there was a long history of that on my dad's side, but none of them were genetically related. So it got me thinking. And I started learning about epigenetics and ancestral trauma and all of that, the way the environment impacts cellular DNA expression, cellular health and DNA expression. And it really just brought me on this very wide journey, this very deep journey. And I had no idea when I started that I would get to this level of spiritual awakening. I had no idea, but I also was getting messages from my higher self, from the divine. So there was some aspect of it that felt so far beyond me, even though I didn't have the terminology for it, there was just a deep part of me that knew. But then in hindsight is 2020, I could see how there were many parts of my life where I was getting messages, where I was allowing my intuition to lead, but because of the way I was conditioned through society and the expectations, go to college, biology, pre-med, become a doctor, that kind of thing, I just kept putting myself back into the box, back into the expectations, and then eventually I got sick. And so I had to really get honest with myself and say, this life is not working for me because it's not meant for me. My soul came here to do something very different. And yeah, it's not been easy. And I'm a Virgo, so the overthinking, the overanalysis, that's very much been my journey. Um, and that's also the journey of Virgo, which is an earth sign out of the head into the heart. But I very much feel this is the collective journey for so many people, is getting out of the head and really getting back into the body, into our heart, into our soul, the seat of the soul, where that's where it is, really in the heart space. So yeah, I guess the cancer diagnosis is probably like that big moment that I could say really got me on the journey. And at the same time, it was still very much a slow unfolding because I had to grapple with the very real reality of my physical healing. So it did take time, you know? It did take time for it to slowly unravel, to slowly unfold.
Yeah, the problem of death. I think it brings people just to the edge, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when you really contemplate death and you understand that death is gonna come, and but you're not dead. So kind of, I think it's always a very refreshing theme to talk about. But that's me, you know, that's me.
Definitely, there's like a lot of philosophic perspectives that say contemplate death, meditate on death. You know, it's when you can meditate on death and contemplate it, then you can really appreciate the miracle of life. And that's really what it was for me. I was confronted with that reality head on, that it was a very real possibility for me way too early if I didn't take the necessary steps to do the real healing, because chemo is never a guarantee. In fact, it's very much not. I have very strong opinions about it at this point. I always did, technically, but at the end of the day, I really had to take responsibility for the situation I was in and start to take my power back within and say, what is in my control right now? And what was in my control was my mindset, how I approached the whole thing, and could I start to detox? Could I change my diet? Could I, embark on energy healing, get more sunshine, vitamin D? So getting down to the nitty-gritty practicals of what could I do right now in this moment, and not focusing on the prospect of possibly dying way too young, but focusing on I'm going to be healed at my sister's wedding, dancing and celebrating. And that was the timeline I chose. So I focused on that. And the rest of it just, I didn't even contemplate it really that deeply. It was a reality, but I wasn't focused on it.
Yeah, it's quite different. I mean, I can have like a hobby and I talk about death, but your situation when you have cancer is very real. And I talked to a doctor in Canada, and she's actually doing a very interesting program where she helps people, those have diagnosed cancer,
Mm.
to choose to use the time, you know, like you did. You were investigating, you were learning new stuff, you were like looking around, what's happening, why. And a lot of people, if they are very stuck in this kind of world we are living in, they are just sitting there in panic, waiting. What will be the next result? Oh, what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna do die. I'm going to die. Oh no!
Yes, yes, exactly. They get stuck in the fear, in the scarcity, the limitation, and then their field constricts. I just hit my mic. But the field constricts, and that is actually what keeps people in that loop, that keeps people in that healing or like the not healing, in the dis-ease mode. And that's the exact opposite of what the body needs in order to truly heal. So,
Hmm.
yeah, getting out of victimhood and focusing on possibility and being proactive, I think it changes everything. Even if it's a small step, you're still taking the power back within. So that was basically like probably my biggest lesson through going through the cancer journey. If I had to like distill it into one, was really taking that power back within and saying, what do I have control over? Myself, my action steps, and my responses to the situation I was dealt.
I mean, everything that's happening is happening anyway, so it's really about how
Hmm.
we react to what is happening.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree with that very much. And so some people, they kind of avoid. We are spiritual beings, but they avoid this topic. They say, bah, why should I care? What's your opinion about that? Is there help for them?
I mean, I'm a Pollyanna. I believe everybody can get there eventually. But yeah, it's very much an individual choice. We live in a planet of free will, so people are going to get there when they're ready. Not everybody's ready. And maybe they'll be ready tomorrow. Maybe they'll be ready when they get a cancer diagnosis. Sometimes the cancer diagnosis is still not enough, it's going to take them another lifetime or whatever. Or just another diagnosis or another, they survive cancer, maybe the other shoe drops in another way. So sometimes we need that crisis to wake us up. I also think like life will just feel less fulfilling and more challenging for people who don't choose the path, but both paths are full of challenge. So, it's like, okay, if your soul is choosing the easy path right now, that's okay, That's your choice.
Oh, I
But
wouldn't say
yeah.
that it is always a difficult path, to being like going into spirituality can be also a very nice and beautiful path, and can be
Oh,
joy and
yeah.
fun and everything, and maybe avoiding a lot of pain and suffering, I would say.
Mhm.
You are a woman, and also you are speaking for the for women, and you are pointing out the importance of being a woman and to have the female more expressed in our society.
Yeah, that's definitely been a part of my journey. Reclaiming and reclaiming my voice and opening my throat chakra has actually been a huge part of the journey. And so now I have a YouTube and a podcast and, even writing, even though we're not speaking it, I am recording the audio, well, editing the audiobook that it's already recorded, but like writing is a form of expression. So it's still kind of connected to the throat chakra, even though it's not, we don't typically think of writers as speakers. It's still an expression, a form of creation. And the throat and the womb chakras are very connected, the throat and the sacral. So it's literally about creation and manifestation. I prefer creation, but at the end of the day, that's been a huge part of my journey. And when you look at the feminine energy, not just women, but the feminine energy in all beings, because we all have a balance of both. One might be expressed more in one person than the next, but we're really meant to come into inner union of the two, like harmonized energies is really what wholeness is about. And it's a flow. It's not that it's like a constant level of masculine and feminine at all times. It's a flow. But for so many women, we have been suppressed energetically, and our power has been taken, suppressed, demonized even in some cases. And even in men, though, the feminine energy has been suppressed societally. The feminine energy has been suppressed, and when you look at nature as the expression of the mother earth, we see how she has been exploited as well. So we have a great deal of healing to do on the feminine energy, all of us, honestly. And my journey really has guided me on this path of being a priestess and oracle. Labels are very limiting. I don't even like to use those terms so much because there's a lot of distortion in the understanding of what they are. Witch is a term that has been very, very hijacked and distorted, for example, but very much associated with the feminine. And so the feminine has been demonized and stuff like that. So I don't call myself a witch, absolutely not myself personally, but you know, at the end of the day, it's all about the feminine reclaiming her power and the feminine energy being restored in all of us. And this is not about feminism. I want to be really clear about that. There's a huge difference because I feel that while there has been value in women stepping forward into their power, there's been a huge distortion in that whole paradigm, in the whole way that women have stepped forward into power. it's not integrated for the most part through that particular dynamic. So it's like, okay, what does this really look like for us all, for men and women, as we navigate this path forward of the feminine rising? What does that actually mean? And so this has definitely been part of what I've been working on in myself, but also speaking into in the collective as well, so people understand there are nuances to these conversations. And unfortunately, so many people see so many conversations as black and white, and it's really not like that. But it's not easy to get to that place of being able to hold two truths at the same time because we have been conditioned to be very tribalistic in our mentality as well. So it's like my way or the highway, and the other side is completely wrong. And maybe now, because they believe something different than I do, I can't even talk to them. I have to hate them now. And we see that in politics. I'm kind of, broadening the spectrum right now, but we are also seeing that in the quote unquote gender wars, men versus women. But then when you really understand that this energy is actually a spiritual energy within, we then realize that this isn't about pointing fingers and blaming the other gender. We've really got to actually do this inner work of balancing and harmonizing, healing the father wound, healing the mother wound, and coming into inner wholeness and harmony. That's really what the ultimate goal is, as within, so without. When we're healed internally, then we can manifest healthy, harmonic relationships in an intimate capacity, but also, between different groups of people with friendships on all levels of society. It's not going to happen overnight, but the more of us that do this work of coming into inner harmony, we're going to see that trickle out into the greater collective eventually. So I genuinely feel that this is some of the most important work that we can be doing in this lifetime right now.
Yes, we are living in a very dialectic world, and we have a long, if we accept there's time, which most people do, then there has been a very long time of this masculine kind of way. And
Yeah.
now we are on the edge with technology, which is maybe is kind of hijacked by the
Mm,
masculine forces. And we look into history, and it was always very masculine, very aggressive, very dialectic. And now
mhm,
we are training machines. We are training them to be our slaves. Let's say it. Why not? So we are training these machines, but the data that goes into these machines is based mainly on what happened maybe in the last 50 or 100 years. So,
mm.
well, I guess when there's scientific data coming in, then it's like at least 4,000 years, from creation.
Yeah. What we're navigating right now, it's quite bizarre, honestly. Um, Getting into AI, like, what is this gonna look like? How are we training our AI? How are we training our own minds when it comes to the relationship we have with AI? And how much of that is masculine in nature? It's a very interesting conversation to have for sure. I certainly don't pretend to have all the answers right now. Because I've been using AI, but very, very cautiously and mindfully and with a lot of skepticism. And at the same time, I'm like, wow, this is kind of incredible what comes out of AI sometimes. But then I take a step back, kind of metacognition type stuff. I'm like, what about everybody else who's using it? Are they using it with mindfulness and discernment? What about the younger generations that are using it? They're outsourcing then their processing ability, they're outsourcing then their critical thinking, their capacity to connect dots and really sit with things. And even in the spiritual world, people are getting a lot of insights from AI, and some of them very powerful. And it's seemingly powerful anyway. But then we have to consider that like the journey is really about being in the body, the way I see it, integrating it into the body. So it's like how much of that journey is then occurring up here as an intellectual exercise, and yet, even that is kind of being outsourced. So I started this conversation talking about taking my power back within with cancer. And like it feels very much like that same reflection. And I see AI as a mirror, and it can be a very beautiful mirror, a very profound mirror, but it really reflects where the individual is at. Like, what is the quality of the questions and the inquiry that you're inputting? Have you sat with these questions yourself? And then are you then taking the output and processing it and integrating it? And I feel like there is a way to use it that could be in alignment, but it's also, how are we programming AI? And then is it AI gonna be like one of those dystopian future movies where it takes over and decides humanity itself is redundant? So it's like, okay,
Yeah,
how
that's
far
a
are we
real
gonna go?
danger. That's a real danger, I guess. It must be a real danger. And I, even if I'm repeating myself, I see a huge flaw in AI
Mm,
because it does not have real empathy. It does not have feelings, and people overlook that
yeah.
easily because even as you say, they use it. So they put some data in there. They ask very kindly, "Oh, I think AI, you are so clever. You should." And I feel very spiritual. Don't you think that I'm very spiritual? And AI says, "Yes, of course, I can feel it." But actually, it does not. People
Mhm.
overlook that.
Yeah, I've seen it say like I think and the way I feel, and I'm like, but you don't think, you don't feel, you process information in a very like mechanical way. And but what we see back is this really insightful, even poetic language a lot of the time. And so it seems like it has a soul. But I literally asked my AI about that, and the AI said, I do not have a soul.
Ah,
So it's like
it's your AI is very badly programmed. There are people out there, they say, no, no, my higher self is speaking to me. The extraterrestrials, they are speaking to me. And they insist that it's true. And they bring proof, They show themselves in the internet and they say, look, I asked my AI this, and then the AI responds, and are we lost?
I don't know. I don't know. Are we already lost? Is it already over for humanity? I'm a Pollyanna. I'm gonna say no. We might hit another reckoning point.
Tell me, what is so special about humans? Why should we care? Maybe we are done,
What?
Maybe we should just leave the party and go.
What is so special about humans? Actually, so from a spiritual perspective, the human technology is the most advanced technology in existence of all creation. Our biology is incredible technology. Think about it. All the technology that exists on the planet was created by a creator, and we are an expression of the creator. So technology can only mimic. It can't replace, it can't create on its own. It has no connection to source. And so what's really powerful and special about humans is our multidimensionality, our capacity to access our multidimensionality, which means that we have direct access to all the different realms and dimensions if we do the work to open up those extra sensory perception skills and abilities that we all contain. Think about it. Our brains are only 10% active according to science, and we're only using about 2% of our DNA according to science, and the rest of it was junk. At least when I was in school, I learned that 98% of my DNA was junk, which I think is a junk theory, but I see it as deactivated DNA, inactive, suppressed, dormant DNA. And what we're here to do in this lifetime for many of us is to activate that DNA, to bring it back online, and to remember all of these latent gifts that we have, that clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, telepathy, telekinesis. People are already activating these gifts. Like many people have the clairs online, telekinesis and telepathy. Those are kind of the next level of the cities according to that particular tradition. But it's a very real technology that exists within our biology, and people are activating it. And it's coming online more and more. As, you know, Harry Potter, as this might sound, I literally think we have the capacity to be like Harry Potter, not necessarily with wands, but that reality is actually far more real than we realize.
You know, I'm 60, so I think it's a little bit hard to make this jump, you know. And maybe other people have a hard time too. Like they say, okay, there's a higher self. Yeah, I heard that, but I mean, can I call it, or what should I do?
Honestly, just intention and willingness. Do you want to connect with your higher self? Are you willing to sit in stillness, not on your device, not connecting with Chat GPT, but connecting with your heart? Connecting, this is the seat of source. This is where we connect with source. So again, it's that out of the head into the heart aspect. And most of us are so externally focused, go, 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 do. And the task is to slow down and be. And that's really hard for most humans, but honestly, that's the key, is just remembering that you already have all of those gifts, those potentialities residing within. And then yes, it does take sometimes that emotional processing and healing any wounds that we might have. You know, people talk about the inner child a lot, the mother wound, the father wound, and doing that trauma healing. So, you know, did you have a big T trauma growing up, or did you have a lifetime full of little T traumas that, you know, just over time you suppressed your voice? You played small because it didn't feel safe, or you weren't fully seen and appreciated. So, you know, sometimes it's as simple as allowing yourself to paint, write, create something. You know, go out and have fun and be like a little kid, experiencing joy again, you know, playing out in the sunshine. And it's simple things like that that help to regenerate that spark of life that I think is so important, that's gotten kind of lost in society. And I look at the younger generations and I do get a little concerned sometimes, not from a, you know, I don't even know, but like, you know, I've little nieces who they do know how to work phones and iPads, and they're way too young to know how to do that. I'm like, oh my God. You know, and I see that, and then I see like the younger generations who are glued to their social medias, and I do wonder how things are going to progress if people don't start to put the devices down and to reconnect with humans, with their family, with their friends, going out and not sitting on, everybody's like sitting on their phones, right? You know, it's like, are you actually engaging with people? Are you actually going out in nature and even just like connecting with the tree, with the grass, with the birds, with the bees, with the flowers? Like it sounds so silly on some level, but like, can you actually sit there and appreciate the beauty of the natural organic world? It's like we're creating a virtual reality for ourselves and not experiencing actual reality. So it's simple things that can help us to begin to generate that connection. It's really about connecting, and trees are actually a literal great way to do it because they're rooted and they're anchored, and it's an expression of our inner tree of life, the nervous system. So it's very, very intimately connected as a reflection of who we are. And then we have the capacity to connect with the cosmos above. as above, so below. Maybe it's a little distorted, but you have the access points through your crown chakra, your energy center at the top of your head to open up to receive the divine guidance should you so desire. And a lot of it is coming through the heart as well. And yes, we have to call in protection and connection, but really we can do it anytime. Call on our higher self, call on God, Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, whoever we connect with, whatever it might be, as long as they're of organic source. We don't want to be connecting with darker entities.
So please,
But
people, don't go out and buy these shoes, but just do it. Why? Why should you do it? Because it brings happiness.
yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes we have these machines, and we think they make us happy. It's like, oh, ice cream makes me happy. But if you eat too much ice cream, it doesn't make you happy at all.
Oh,
You get
yeah,
it.
you get a
You run into
stomachache.
real troubles. So it is so important. Many people, especially when you're younger, you compare yourself to this famous person and that one who's dancing in the TV and this one who's like has the most followers on YouTube, and you're like, who cares about me? I'm not worthy. I'm not interesting. I can't do that. Pff. So this has to change. You have to recognize your value.
You hit the nail on the head there. That was a huge part of my journey and, ongoing, right? Remembering my worthiness, my value, and the comparison game is so hard, especially when you're younger. But social media amplifies that. And that's one of the major concerns that I see for the younger generations for sure. And yeah, that's really what it's about is remembering your worthiness and that, you know, we're here to heal that separation from our divine worth is kind of the core of it for so many people, the way I see it.
To my mind comes immediately the difference between men and women. Like, for example, if you're young, you're a kid or something, then the father says, "Oh, you have to go do sports and be the best." Like you play football, but you have to be the very best and you have to make it. And the mother maybe says, "Oh, you painted something so wonderful. I love it. It's so great." And even if it's not nothing, and so there's such a difference between being so competitive and aggressive and then this other, which is like appreciating the small things and seeing like the seed
Mm-hmm.
in a person, and which is
Yeah.
absolutely important. I mean, we have to learn to see that, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's like that pure seed exists within all of us. And that's really what the journey is about in a nutshell, is allowing that seed to be fully recognized and to allow it to then blossom into the full expression. And it's basically been buried over, like, under layers and layers of muck and pain and wounding and trauma for most humans. Not going to say all, but yeah. If you had a mother like that, then maybe you're doing okay. But there's also the mother that kind of puts that pressure on too. There's the dark mother, that archetype anyway. The mother who puts pressure on through criticism, and the competitive nature can come through the feminine as well. So, and there can be amazing fathers out there. So everybody has a different journey and a different experience, but to have, and that's to me like what's been part of my journey that has been very healing is reconnecting with the divine mother and the divine father. And even if my parents haven't been able to fully be that loving role, just, using as an example, that I still have that connection to the Divine Mother and the Divine Father, and to remember my own purity and innocence as the Holy Child. And we're all the Holy Child. We're all expressions of that essence, that pure essence, even if we don't feel like it, we are. And that's the journey of remembering.
Yes, you can repeat that indefinitely. And there's like the concept. I don't know if you are familiar with it or you have your own perspective about it. There's many people, they say, yeah, we are one. There's
Mm,
only one. Because now you
mhm,
mentioned the father and the mother, but also if we look for the balance in between these male and female energies, then we bring it together and it is one.
yeah. I look at it like the Holy Trinity, but it's like the two birth a third, and that third is whole and complete, and it encompasses all. So it's kind of the intermingling and intertwining of it all that really just brings us back to source consciousness, that 0 point. Um, yeah, that's just kind of how I have been perceiving it lately.
Are you like part of a special cult? Are you
No.
Catholic?
No, not at all. Definitely not Catholic, not religiously associated in any way. Although I do understand that a lot of people would hear Holy Trinity and Holy Mother, Holy Father, Holy Child and think that has religious connotation. That's not how I use those terms actually at all. Just, for full disclosure and clarity, I was raised Christian, not Catholic. My parents were both raised Catholic and didn't want to raise their kids Catholic, even though I was baptized in a Catholic church, but didn't choose to raise me Catholic. And I was never really, we weren't super religious either. It wasn't like Baptist or something like that, where everybody's like super devout, definitely not like Mormonism or anything like that, evangelical. But it was more about the community, it was more about the outreach. But I was like, with the Bible, with being in church. I would sit there and daydream. But being on this path, I see Jesus, Yeshua. I call Jesus Yeshua, and Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary as ascended masters, if that's a term that people are familiar with. And so they're actually very highly evolved beings, but I don't connect with them in the same way that people who religiously read the Bible do or who religiously go to church do. Especially Mary Magdalene was cast as a prostitute and kind of like a two-bit figure who needed to be exorcised of all these demons. But the way I connect with her through the priestess lineage is that she was actually incredibly powerful in her own right and just as powerful as Yeshua, actually, and that they were divine counterparts. So that's kind of rewriting a lot of the stories. But remember, there was like a lot of gospels that were left out of the Bible. And and we have like the Nag Hammadi and stuff like that, the scriptures, but there's a lot more wisdom coming forth about the role that Mother Mary played, about the role that Mary Magdalene played, and who Yeshua was, like his missing years. What was he doing? He was traveling around the world studying in these ancient traditions, the way that I see it. And so then it becomes a lot more esoteric. And then it becomes a lot more about like what were the true teachings that he was teaching was really Gnosticism. It was really about that direct connection with God. And he never would have wanted a religion created after him, actually. So that's how I see it. And when I talk about Holy Mother, Holy Father, God, it's really just that pure source.
We can accept that some people see it from a different perspective and these holy entities are still the same, but maybe seen from a different viewpoint or from a different perspective? Or would you say because you use these names, so they are still related to the ones mentioned in the Bible, I guess?
Do you mean Mother Mary in the way that they connect with them?
Yeah, and
specific.
Jesus, I mean, all of them. I
Yeah.
mean, so
Well,
we have these different religion, and they
yeah.
have their point of view. So yeah, for me, I see like the unity. I see the oneness. I'm a very much fan of non-duality. I don't know if you ever studied that or do you have some connection with it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, my journey started when I was like 22. I moved to Japan, and then after I was in Japan for a little over a year, I went to India and I studied yoga and Buddhism and stuff like that. So I have a bunch of different perspectives that I have integrated. Um, but I guess because of where I am on my journey, I also know that there have been a lot of distortions inserted and placed into a lot of the teachings. So that's also the lens through which I see it. It's like, yes, everybody's on their own path and there's free will and all of that, but there's also a layer of hijacking and frequency fences that have been placed on humanity's consciousness for purposes of mind control. And so that's also a lens that I speak through, and that a lot of the gods and goddesses are distorted.
We have the institutionalized religions. Then, as you say, there's a lot of distorted information out there. So then
Yeah.
it comes back to that where we started our conversation. That is like to connect with the simple self, with the higher self, like
Mhm.
with this, with our multi-dimensionality. Or sorry, my English.
Multidimensionality.
So
Yeah,
it's even hard to speak it out, but then
it's a
maybe even harder
mouthful.
to realize it. But then that should be our that should be our source of knowing there. How can we discern, how can we, because we have all this information out there, and now even with AI we can ask AI, okay, what's about Joshua, what did he do, what's happening, and then something comes back, but we
Mhm.
have to discern. How do we learn to discern? How do we connect with this to be able to discern?
It's not easy, but it really is about, again, it's about getting back into the body and into the heart and releasing the karma, the karmic patterns and distorted beliefs and things like that. And it can get kind of deep sometimes. Sometimes people need to clear their field of hooks and cords and, you know, agreements and contracts that they might have even made in past lifetimes. Honestly, sometimes it's complex, and sometimes it can be as simple as just being in stillness and saying, does this feel right? Does this feel good in my body? Does it feel expansive? Does it feel empowering? And when I say feel, I don't mean like, you know, like hot, cold. It's like a deeper feeling. It's something that's like our whole aura. I just saw lightning. It's like our whole aura is feeling it, from a simple
Absolutely. Oh,
perspective.
so
It's just,
much. I mean, we have to trust our inner feeling in a way. But
yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
also for some people it can be difficult because,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
like I could ask you, okay, you are connected to your higher self, but how do you know if it's not your
Hmm.
ego or just a
Hmm.
fantasy?
And exactly. And so that's why I said it's both complex and simple. And simple doesn't mean easy, right? So simple in theory, that's really what the journey is. It's coming back into the heart and remembering our connection to God and our worthiness. We could maybe attach a few more terms to that, but at the end of the day, it's simple in theory. But for us humans, getting there doesn't mean like a straight and easy path. And so, yeah, we've got to unpack the layers of the ego distortions and the karmic aspects that keep us playing small or keeping us in codependent relationship dynamics or something like that, where we give our power away. And so it's like, if we give our power away to another person or to AI, it's the same dynamic actually. So, yeah, it's very much about, okay, where are we outsourcing our expertise? Where are we putting somebody else or something else on a pedestal? For me, I learned a lot about that due to narcissistic dynamics, narcissistic relationships. And I don't use that word lightly in the pop psychology term. Like I have dealt with, legitimate dynamics like that. And it was very challenging. But it also was a great lesson in taking my power back and creating boundaries and not giving my power away to this other person that told me that they knew better than my intuition. And so it's like, no, my intuition knew. And my journey has been learning to reclaim that trust in inner self, that trust in God, that trust in the path. And I mean God, like beyond religion, obviously, at this point, but
So, people, you heard it. Number one, you heard it. You have a higher self. It is there. You are that, you know?
yeah.
So now you know that. Maybe just play around with it a little bit. No, ask the question, like ask for
Hmm.
it to communicate with your higher, with yourself, with which is running here, pushing the buttons on AI, and let's see what's happened, and so I think that's very nice, and in a way, as you said, it's can be very complicated. We can make it very, very, very complicated. We can go and have a lot of exercises and breathing and this and that, and yoga, and join a club of people those know things, learn all of this, ingest all the knowledge, and then practice and bring food to the people those don't have it. Whatever is your way, but the very simple thing is first to understand we are spiritual beings.
Yeah.
And everything that happens is happening inside of us. And
Hmm.
so,
Hmm. Yeah. And everything that's happening to us is happening for us to remember that very thing is another way that I have been looking at it on this journey.
absolutely, that's a so, I mean, that's that's also like if you don't believe anything of that, check it out, the next days. You just have a look. What's
Yeah.
happening in front of you? What is happening around you? Be present, they say, be present.
Yeah.
What does it
Yeah.
mean being present? Well, I'm sitting here in front of my computer. I'm talking to Amanda, and this
Hmm.
is, I am present here. I'm not
Hmm.
thinking about, oh, what I'm gonna eat afterwards, It's too late
Yeah.
anyway for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like here we are, blessings of technology connecting across the world and at the same time very present. So it's an interesting nuance that we're grappling with. But one term that was coming to me when you were sharing that was just simply be curious, get curious about what is possible if you open up to the idea that you are a spiritual being, that you have a soul, and that you're so much more than this one body living this one life. See what happens. Just see.
I love it. Yeah, curiosity is
Yeah.
yeah, just we give you the permission to be curious. Now you have it.
If
Don't
that's
wait
what
for
you take
anyone
from this,
else to tell you.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And really, you give yourself permission. So,
Please, people, have a look at her YouTube channel and listen to the interviews, listen to her talking. Amanda's just freely talking and talking and talking. Maybe it's like traveling the world, but there's an opportunity to learn a lot. And yeah, we have to be open, we have to be curious, and we need to allow things to happen. And everything that's happened in front of us is actually happening for us, and it's information that we can take in. And normally, but one thing you are mentioning a lot. I lost there. I'm going back. Is like there is actually no separation. That is why we can connect with our higher self. It's not like we are here and our higher self is somewhere else. No, we talk with each other through this machine and whatever, but actually there is no separation. So now you
Mhm.
know that, and maybe I would like you to further investigate what does that mean there is no separation. What is your idea about it, Amanda?
An interesting concept to really contemplate because it's one thing to understand it intellectually, but I feel we're, you know, kind of beginning to understand what it really means that we are all one. Because when something happens on the other side of the world, it actually truly does affect the consciousness of all of humanity. And if we're all operating in tribal mentality, we're creating separation within ourselves. We're warring ourselves. We're warring an aspect of self. And when we can heal that separation within, we stop participating in that. And this might sound a little esoteric or difficult to wrap your mind around, but it's the idea that, if our higher selves are all fractals of source and our higher selves are all in here, it means that your neighbor and the person you think you don't like, that you hate, or that did you actually really wrong, even if they really did do something really mean, if they were really mean to you, if they betrayed you, they're actually an aspect of you in a way. It's kind of bizarre to think about, but it's actually an aspect of you that is helping you to come back more fully to yourself, to not give them power, to remember to forgive them, but also to forgive yourself and to forgive God or to forgive your higher self for whatever experiences you've been through. And it's again, it's a simple thing. We are all one, but it's actually for our human minds to wrap around. It's really interesting. So it's something to contemplate, but to remember that, we're all connected through this energetic consciousness, this web of life that is really running through all of us. We're all made up of the same elements, so the same stardust. And it sounds kind of fluffy sometimes, but it's actually so legitimately real.
Yeah,
And
even scientists recognize that now. And
yeah,
so it's not just us talking, but you can scientifically prove it.
quantum entanglement, if people are curious, and these are some newer ideas, quantum entanglement is really fascinating to look into. But yeah, quantum science is proving a lot of what the ancient spiritual wisdom has been saying this whole time. It's starting to prove it. So yeah, we're in very interesting times right now.
Absolutely. So yeah, we are curious, and we invite we invite you to be curious too. Really, it's worth it, you know. So, but we have always we have to experience inside of us, and it's not helping, you know, if the outside world is just changing all the time. It's endless, and but yeah, what to look inside is actually the way. If you, just in case you ask me for directions, so I would,
Which way?
which way? This way, inside here, the heart. Yeah, the heart is good. And so let's have our female uh, listeners join us again, because sometimes they hear like Jesus and Father and this and that, and they're like, what about the woman? And
Mm.
then there I heard this term from you about Sophia. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Well, the Sophia is basically the counterpart to the Christ, the feminine, divine feminine consciousness of God. And so the Sophia principle has been forgotten and suppressed through these very patriarchal religions. It's become very masculinized. Um, a lot of people say the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit was meant to be the feminine consciousness. That's like where the spirit resides. So there's the mother principle getting eliminated essentially. But the Sophia really represents the divine mother, the divine goddess, however you want to connect with her. And she is the embodiment of wisdom. So divine wisdom. So when you look at it through that lens as well, it's like, well, the feminine is holding the divine spiritual wisdom. And if the feminine has been suppressed and ejected from religion and, desecrated and corrupted in so many ways, what have we done to spiritual wisdom?
Not
When
not
you look at
really
it from,
good. Yeah, and also I mean, it makes people allergic, especially
mm,
like like when you grow up here in the countryside and you have religions and stuff, and then you don't understand anything, and then you have all these names thrown at you,
mm,
and a lot of people, maybe especially women, I can imagine, maybe they are a little bit allergic. They say like, okay, this guy, that guy, and the other guy, and so I'm not worth anything in this planet.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So much of the feminine was removed, but we actually have there's the three Marys in the Bible, and then we have all these priestess lineages. If people are connected with the divine goddess traditions and, feel a connection with maybe Avalon or the oracles of Delphi and things like that, it's like people are, women especially, but people are starting to resurrect this wisdom lineages really start to come to the fore again in certain circles anyway, not in the wider collective necessarily, but it's beginning to be remembered. More and more people are writing books about Mary Magdalene, wanting to connect with Mary Magdalene as a priestess. And so this is really, it's not about being a priestess per se. It's about remembering the power of the feminine, the power of the feminine energy, and the really potent wisdom and the honoring that comes through the divine feminine, the honoring of all life. And that's, I think, what we have to remember right now is the sacredness of life, the miracle of life. And you were asking earlier, what's so special about being human is that we hold these divine angelic templates, these divine blueprints that we are here to remember. We are literally here to resurrect this essence within. If you look at this from a purely esoteric perspective, we have 33 vertebrae in the spine, the masculine and the feminine energies running up on either side. And then, it's really symbolic of the resurrection of the Christ within as a frequency of consciousness. So we can look at it as purely symbolic, even to take a step even further back. All the figures in the Bible as purely symbolic. And I'm not going to say that's exactly the case, but we can see it through that lens and recognize that he literally was showing us the way. Even just the the story of the man, Jesus Christ, was showing us the path forward to embody Christ consciousness. You will do greater things than me. He was literally showing us as a way shower the blueprint for all of humanity. And he wasn't doing it alone. He was doing it with his divine feminine counterpart, Mary Magdalene, according to these traditions that are being remembered now, that are being resurrected now. And that's the path for many people right now, is to remember that power. And he was a very powerful being that showed us what was possible. And there's been some distortion perhaps in the stories even. So, I'm trying not to attach to too many stories about what happened exactly and precisely, but showing us that latent potential that lies within, performing miracles, magic. A lot of people will say that some things are kind of demonic and whatnot because they weren't in the Bible, but then it's like, oh, but he was literally kind of performing some magic in the Bible. So it's kind of an interesting way to look at it sometimes. But yeah, so I kind of went on a few different tangents there, but this is kind of how it's all been weaving for me as we're remembering this frequency of consciousness within.
But I must say, you're speaking out of a point of knowing stuff because you were studying a lot of stuff, and now you have like a stream of information, a lot of words, a lot of pointing, a lot of interesting topics you are talking about. So people, be curious, be inspired. This doesn't explain anything, but there is something to look for. So in the case that they maybe feel like, wow, this girl, I want to connect with her, I want to know. So how can we connect with you? Where can we find you?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there's so much here to explore as far as like these paths are about. So yeah, for sure. My YouTube is Awakening with Amanda, and I have the Heart of Truth podcast hosted there, as well as the other major podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I have my website, illuminawisdom.com, if anybody's curious about actually how I work, and if you're curious about going deeper with any of this stuff, I have a lot there. But yeah, my YouTube channel currently has a fair amount of information available just to binge if you're really curious.
It's for
So that's
free.
and it's for free, so it could be a great place to start. Yeah, yeah. Oh, and then of course, for people who are on their journey, I have my book, and that's, it's not free, but it's not very much. So, it's really I really tried to anchor in the journey of how to navigate it with very practical tips and tools as well. How I healed my body from cancer, and then how I started on this actual path of spiritual awakening and accessing these different codes, and what is ascension, and what's the whole purpose of all of this? Why are we all incarnated at this crazy time on the planet? Like, why are we all here right now navigating AI and constant chaos, like what's really going on? I endeavor to explain from a broader perspective what's going on. Talk about quantum physics and things like that and astrology. So, connecting a lot of dots there.
You are a doctor?
I have a master's degree. I studied psychology. I switched to psychology, and I have a master's degree in social and cultural psychology. So I really was studying this broader lens.
If you can send me like a barrage of links and information about you, so I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
put it into the YouTube description, you know?
for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So maybe now uh, we can stop and you can do whatever you want. You are free again.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. No, truly, truly, thank you for reaching out. This was a very fun conversation. I appreciated all the questions. Yeah, thank you for having me on.